Welcome, everybody, to this very special evening with leading Austrian feminist artist Renate Bertlmann. It's a real honor that you're here today, Renate. My name is Patricia Allmer, and I'm Professor of Modern and Contemporary Art History at the University of Edinburgh. I'm the co-curator, together with Dr. Claire O'Dowd, of the current The Traumatic Surreal exhibition at the Henry Moore Institute in Leeds. And the exhibition is based on my concept of the traumatic surreal, which I developed in my latest book with the same title, The Traumatic Surreal, Germanophone Women Artists and Surrealism After the Second World War, which was published by Manchester University Press in 2022. So it is an absolute honor and pleasure for me to welcome Renate Bertlmann this evening. Renate's work is a crucial part of the Traumatic Surreal exhibition, and I'm very grateful to her for making these wonderful pieces available to us and for taking time this evening, because I know how busy Renate's schedule is, to be here and to be talking to us about her work. Renate Bertlmann's work is extraordinarily important in the history of the feminist avant-garde and in the development of international feminist art and activism. She studied at the Academy of Fine Art in Vienna and has since the early 1970s created an extraordinary oeuvre which spans across painting, drawing, collage, photography, S8 film, sculpture and performance, and actively confronts the social stereotypes assigned to masculine and feminine behaviors and relationships. Her work is focused on issues surrounding themes of sexuality, love, gender, and eroticism with a social context, with her own body often serving as the artistic medium. Over the past 50 years, Renate Bertlmann has been included in many seminal exhibitions across the world. These included the feminist exhibition Magna, Feminismus in Vienna from 1975, curated by Wally Export. Gabriele Schor's important feminist avant-garde of the 1970s exhibitions in major galleries worldwide, including MUMOC in Vienna, ZKM in Karlsruhe, the Photographers Gallery in London, and at the Les Rencontres de la Photographie Festival in Arles. In 2015, Renate was included in the World Goes Pop exhibition at Tate Modern and the Action Gesture Performance Feminism, the Body and Abstraction exhibition at the Whitechapel Gallery in London in 2023. In 2014, Renate was invited by Jessica Morgan to show her installation Washing Day at the 10th Gwangju Biennale in South Korea, and in 2019, she represented Austria at the 58th Venice Biennale, marking the first time in the history of Austria's participation in the Biennale that a female artist has represented the country with a solo exhibition. Her other solo exhibitions include the 2016 Renate Bertlmann Amo Ergo Sum at the Sammlung Verbund in Vienna and Hier ruht meine Zärtlichkeit, Here Lies My Tenderness, the inaugural exhibition of the New State Gallery of Lower Austria in Krems in 2019. And a magnificent major retrospective of her work over the past 55 years in Vienna's Belvedere 21, titled Renate Bertlmann, Fragile Obsessions. And I was incredibly honored to contribute an essay to this important catalogue of this wonderful exhibition. And now talking about these exhibitions, I've really had the good fortune to see a lot of your shows, Renate, and these shows in different contexts. Renate's works are held in many leading collections and museums, including the Sammlung Verbund, the MUMOC, the Belvedere 21, the Centre Georges Pompidou, and the Tate Gallery. And it is an absolute honor for me to have been allowed to write on Renate's work and to include her in our Traumatic Surreal exhibition at the Henry Moore Institute in Leeds. Actually, it was a dream of mine to have an exhibition where you are included in it and where I can show your work. And thank you, Renate, for being here today. So, to our audience, the In Conversation will be followed by a Q&A. So if you have questions, please pop them into the chat and we will come back to your questions at the end of the Q&A. And now, really, I'm so looking forward to this evening and to speaking to Renate. So thank you for being here.
I thank you.
And it is really the works in your works in the Traumatic Surreal exhibition are extraordinary, and I'm really looking forward to also speaking to you specifically about those works which are in the exhibition, and also the dialogues and exchanges these works enter into with the ones by other artists. That was really interesting for me to see. And there are so many different dimensions of your work I'd love to talk about today. And perhaps we could start with your incredible contribution over the past 55 plus years to feminism. So it's really an extraordinary contribution to feminism, both as artist and very importantly as activist working with women's groups such as AUF, Aktion Unabhängige Frauen, Action of Independent Women, Intact, International Action Group of Women Artists, and Women Against Pornography in New York. Was there a particular moment when you became aware that women and men were not treated as equal? And could you talk about this feminist activism in Austria? I'm just going to share our...
Yes, concerning your questions, after my studying on the Academy of Fine Art in Vienna, I was very frustrated. It was a gripped, more or less, and no, no politics came through the thick walls of this a big house. No politics and no role models. There was not a single professor, only men. Yeah. So I was so frustrated that I decided after my diploma to look in Vienna what is going on. I must seek in contact outside, otherwise I get lost. And the first step was very good for me, was the AUF. You mentioned the AUF, Aktion Unabhängige Frauen. It's called Action Action of Independent Women, I think we can translate it. Founded 1972. And this group was very brave, very consequent. And in connection with the legalization of abortion. And I'm sure you know this famous slogan, the belly belongs to me. That is, der Bauch gehört mir. Yes. And of course, there were other topics like family law, sexuality, of course, and different payment of men and women and so on. And I felt very okay with them because I was working, I made layouts for the journal. Here at the left side, you see one of it, number 7 cover, violence against women. And for instance, I worked on the layout, but I also love to write. And in the middle, you see a photo of my article. They were asking me to what you also, Patricia, asked me, my experiences in my sex shops. They also were very interested in it, and I wrote about it, and I made also a drawing with some condoms and how do you say, a thrilling, how do you, bohrmaschine? What is English? Can you help me?
Drill.
A drilling machine, yes. Penis is a drilling machine. Okay, and but it was a little ein Wermutstropfen. It was not quite ideal for me because the women, these political acting and women thought that more or less the artists were weltfremd. They were sitting in their studio and dreaming and making nice pictures and so on. And I didn't feel appreciated by them as an artist and wahrgenommen, not seen as an artist. And that was frustrating. So I looked in Vienna, where are the women and so on. And of course, there are lots of women. And very soon I had a really interesting groups with discussions and also of our art, of course, yes. And you mentioned 1974, the Valley Export exhibition. That was very important, a year, because it was the year of the woman's, how do you say? Woman's year, yes.
Yeah.
And at this occasion, it brought us also together. We organized a very big demonstration against women artists exhibition in Völkerkunde Museum, yes. And in the jury, there were only men. And that was too much. So we were protesting against, and many artists who were invited didn't take part. For instance, me, I just quit and so on. And that was quite good. And 1977, the Intact was founded. And here the main goals were not, of course, also the family laws and money and the professor, the female professors, no female professors, yeah.
Yeah.
And for instance, the government was buying art works from female and male artists, and of course they cost more and they bought more. Yes, I mean, it was very ungerecht, injustice. Yeah. And also we made a quite good networking. We were working together with German German groups and Swiss groups. And I, for instance, got to know also an Italian group. Yeah, and it was really a most exciting time. And when you look at the third photo, there is the Intact Pioneer Women exhibition in a gallery in Vienna. And there took place some Intact artists which were still working. And in the group which was helping to organize was a group of young art historian students from the university. And when they listened to what we were doing and what we were trying to achieve and the difficulties we had, they were totally shocked. And that's the point. They didn't know anything about it. And that showed me again with a great intensity the importance of his historical awareness. Without that, every generation starts again from the punkt null, from the point zero.
Yeah.
And therefore, we have to publish our experiences and to make exhibitions as you do, and that's very, very important. Yes.
I think, yeah, we talked about this the other day also, about what you said about archiving your work, and that you at the time didn't even think about archiving work and how important that is as a female artist.
Yes. And can I have the next photo, please?
One moment.
Yeah, you mentioned WAP, yes, Women Against Pornography, and you see how networking was. How did I come to New York? Yes, as a rather unknown artist. Yes, It was in the middle of 70s, there many performances, festivals were, yes, and with women. And also in Vienna, Grete Insam, I made my performance, Schwangere Braut im Rollstuhl, a pregnant bride in the wheelchair. Yeah, in Vienna, saw me with Smalls from the Apple in Amsterdam. She invited me for another performance, Let's Dance. And here in the Apple, Martha Wilson also made a performance. She saw my performance and said, "Oh, I must invite you to New York, to Franklin Furnace." And then 1980, I made my performance. Here you see the the right picture in Franklin Furnace, the slingshot action where I attacked two sex dolls with a double forked slingshot, yes. And it was great. I mean, one step after the other came, yes. And at this occasion, you see here the Knopf, how do you say this? Button, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. From What Women Against the Pornography. This was an anti-pornographic. They were hated from all the sex shops and peep shows and so on from the 42nd Street. This doesn't exist anymore, I think, yes. But at this time, there was one sex shop, and one peep show and one bordel after the other. And they made anti-pornographic information tours and went into the shops and said, look what they're doing. But I was attending such a tour, and at this, okay, I saw my first peep show.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very interesting.
It was really interesting.
Fascinating. So you also mentioned in the past that reading Linda Nochlin's 1971 essay, Why Have There Been No Great Women Artists, was a significant moment for you. Perhaps can you talk more about how you became aware of and got hold of copies of this and other international feminist publications in Austria? So I'm very interested in that. How did you find the feminist, the British, American feminist publications? What was that kind of Austrian feminist network? How did it work together with the international feminist network?
Oh, I mean, beginning with Nina Nochlin, While There Have Been No Great Women Artists, was so important for us because of one reason. It wasn't a book, it was an article, yes? So it's the first attempt of writing a feminist art history and a feminist art theory, yes? And of a total new way of investigating the art history. It was wonderful. Yes, it is like that, yes. And concerning other network and so on, I mean, that was not such a brilliant network. I mean, there were no feminist bookshop yet. Yes, many things were spread by words of mouth or brought in a rucksack from abroad, and it's and distributed with leaflets or how do you say, pirated prints and so on. It was very anarchic, yes?
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there also in the feminist journals, like I think in Auf, but also in Emma, there are these reviews. It starts that books are reviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. When did I don't know where Emma was first, much later, wasn't it? Not Emma much later, I think.
80s, yeah.
Well, I don't know, yeah. Yes. But I mean, in Austria, we also had one author, Verena Stephan Heutungen. It's Kinnings, I think it is. She was the first. Do you know it? It was the first woman questioning also the main language, and that was very stunning. Yes, and of course we were reading all Simone Beauvoir or Saul Galahad, and of course we were interested in matriarchats. You know, I mean, but at the left-hand side, you see a room of one's own. This was more or less the most important book for all of us, yes? Because where were we working? In the kitchen in the 70s, yes? No money, no nobody supporting and so weiter. And I had the great luck, yes, to get 1970, after I finished my studium, my studies, assistant job on the academy. I earned very good, and I could afford a big studio. I was alone with that. Nobody had it. And I invested all my money in my work. That was paradise. Yes, but it was extremely exceptional. Yes. And yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
Yeah, I heard also from other artists that it was extremely difficult to stay above board and above the water at the time as an artist and to continue working, and there was a lack of galleries exhibiting women artists.
I really must write the biography, yes. But I remember I was married very early. I married, I don't know, what, 69, I think. And everybody knew it. And when I went to a gallerist in the center of Vienna, I said, please, can I have an exhibition? He said, really? He said it. You don't need an exhibition, you are married.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah, that was quite normal. Or another said once in an exhibition, when he saw a big plexiglass object, he was turning around, and oh, he's interested in it. Oh, at last somebody's interested in my work. And then I approached him and he said, oh, you must have a rich husband.
Oh.
It was like that, really.
Yeah, I heard that. It's devastating, and I think that's why the history, as you said, writing the biography, I think
So
it's
important. Yes,
very important. Yeah.
yes, I will do. Yes, can I have the next photo, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You mentioned already the documentation, yes? Here
yeah.
at the Weber Group, by chance, I met in Trieste two artists. At the left-hand side, Emanuela Marassi from Trieste and Barbara Stretti from New Zealand. They were both friends and me. And it was love at first sight. And we decided to build a group. It was called Mareba. Manuela, Renate, Barbara. And we exhibited in whole Italy, six, seven exhibitions, one after the other, yes? And this photo is the single one which exists of all that. We were not interested in documentation. We were not interested in some strategies. How can we provide, or how can we perhaps print a catalog? How can nothing? Oh, it was it's incredible. It's really.
Yeah.
And the left thing was also because you said networking. The both here, Emanuel and Barbara, had a gallerist in Trieste, and he took me also and invited me to a performance festival in Bologna 1977, where I did my first performance declaration in 14 stations here, and that was a great success. And on the other hand, I brought, for instance, Emanuela to Vienna, had in Intact Gallery an exhibition, so we exchanged. It was quite a good networking, yes.
Very, very interesting. So in terms of, if we perhaps, in terms of trauma and why your work really addresses feminist concerns, they also importantly, or your works also importantly and specifically are in the context of post-war Austria. And they dismantle fascist ideas and ideals. Could you perhaps talk more about the historical traumatic context of post-war Austria and how you perceived it at the time? When did you become conscious of this history and how did it influence your work?
As I mean, it was. It is very subjective, of course.
Mhm.
The subject of rape is the most important topic in my life. Yes,
Yeah.
because of my mother, and I was 2 times in great danger because of that. My mother kept quiet for a long time, and she told me only when I was 20 years old that she was raped by a Russian soldier. And of course, you can imagine how she was carrying it, yes? And of course, my father, like all these coming back men, yeah, come back from the war as a stranger, yes?
Yeah.
Stranger to my mother, to my brother, to me. It was really so the longings and the feeling to be alone and to have pain was always and will be always my subject, yeah.
Mhm.
And but at the same time, I felt and experienced loneliness as a privilege and fertilizer for me as an artist, because it was wonderful to be in my studio and to open myself to my inner world. I mean, that was a huge privilege at the same time. Yes, but combined with suffering. I mean, it's
Yeah. So is there a cathartic
yeah,
dimension as well?
of course, yeah.
Should perhaps we can look at Renée rape from.
Yes, it's the next photo. Yeah,
Mhm.
and this topic rape. Um, this is an example of what I love to do in the solitude of my studio, because I didn't need anybody except my camera, which was a prolongation of my hand. Yes,
Mm.
soul, more or less. So how do you call it? Performative staged photography. Yes, I made a whole cyclist called Renée ou Renée, also mit einem E and with one E and with two E's, also male and female. And this is one example where I tried to feel the feelings of a raping man. And of course, I didn't succeed.
Mhm.
But it was nevertheless interesting experience, and all in self-timer sequences. Yes. Mm.
And in terms of working in the studio, you mentioned that you're working on your own a lot. So is that an important aspect of your work?
I worked in my studio for 50 years totally alone, without turning on a radio the whole 50 years.
Mhm.
Everything disturbed me, yes. And of course, I didn't invite anybody. Uh, I didn't think commercial somehow to invite a gallerist or perhaps a person who could buy something. It was I was more or less living like an eremit. And
Mhm.
I was happy with it, because I could do what I wanted. And of course, there are some limits, because then suddenly the money goes out.
Yeah.
No money, no work. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very cruel, but it is like that.
And it's a complex world, the art world in that context, of course.
Uh,
There's
uh,
a
It's very complex, yes. Yes.
So perhaps we can focus on your objects and sculptures. So the Traumatic Surreal exhibition focuses on objects and sculptures, and your work uses an extraordinary range of media, as I mentioned before, so from photography, drawing and painting to performances and film. Could we perhaps talk at first more about this range of media your work is straddling? What influences motivated this multimedia interest, and when and why did you start working with objects and sculpture?
May I have, can you show the next picture, please? Here you see 3 different medias, more or less. Also, the wheelchair, it's it's an object made out of plexiglass. And the middle for Let's Dance Together is also performed for a performance, but also a staged photography. And then the left hand side is a photo film. At the right side is a photo film. Only of photos which were how do you say, composed of superimposed. Is it right? Superimposed?
Yeah.
Individual images of a wheelchair.
Yeah. Perhaps we could watch it.
Yes, please. Yes, and was interesting for me in this sense, why it is called aeroscope. I was photographing wheelchair pieces, plexiglass pieces, filming through a kaleidoscope. This was so so touching and so suggestive and erotic. And I couldn't stop because millions of the kaleidoscope, millions of pictures are coming up again and again. I couldn't stop. Yes, and therefore I named these sequences through a kaleidoscope, aeroscope.
Very interesting. And the soundscape is really piercing and enthralling and draws you in. It's
Also deformed source, some nice melody, but totally deformed. I had also a keyboard and I was experimenting on with the software on the sound, and I was deforming it and making
interesting.
And the next, perhaps the next, yeah. And here you have 3 different media. For instance, at the left-hand side, Boris drumming, it's called Boris drumming. It's interesting in the sense that the Boris, the theater scene, the theater scene in Vienna was very, very lively. Yes, and my favorite was Thomas Bernhard. And
I love Thomas Bernhard.
yeah, it's great. I mean,
Brilliant.
was so courageous and so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this, I did a long series of drawings for ein Fest für Boys, a celebration for boys, birthday party in a asylum or a cripple asylum, where all were sitting in wheelchairs, of course. Wheelchairs, that was something for me. And so a drawing, and then in the middle, that was the source of this picture, of this photo collage, is a Super 8 film. I started with Super 8 film, and this is a touching of two condoms, two different colored condoms, and afterwards I made photo of it and photo collage, and then I was also painting. This is forbidden fruits, magic, so-called magic carpets, painting on Leinwand, yes. Yeah,
On canvas, yeah.
the reason why I use different materials is because to investigate a topic with different mediums is very interesting, because every medium touches another meaning, another level, a different level of a meaning. It says photograph is something, it will reveal something else than a drawing. And so often I was photographing a performance.
Interesting.
Because I said, what have I done? Now, for instance, performance in Bologna, Deflorazione, I was
Restaged.
at
Yeah.
home in the studio, and I did photograph with self-timer the whole story to see what have I really done. Yes, so that, yes, or one in
Very interesting. And the first medium you worked in was photography, wasn't it?
It's more as a photographer. Yes. I was more or less grown. I did more or less grow up with a photo apparat, because my uncle gave me the present when I was 12 years, a little camera. He went on photo safaris, and then we developed the films by ourselves in the bathroom. Yes.
Wow, how interesting.
Yes, and that was the reason why, when I had my nice studio, the first thing I did to build in a darkroom. And this darkroom was always a Hexenkammer for me, which
Yeah.
is because here we could experiment with different lights, with different papers, and put Doppelbelichtungen, double
Exposure.
exposures, and 3 times exposures. It was wonderful. Yes.
Amazing. And the photo safaris, where did you go when you were a child?
Everywhere. Yes, everywhere. In the park, we were photographing the eggs of a swan. We found a nest with a swan, and I have this swan egg still.
Oh, really? Amazing. God, extraordinary.
It's 70 years old, I think.
Well, we'll come back to the question of collecting and keeping things. Yeah. So I'd love to ask you more questions about these specific images, but unfortunately, we need to move to the next question. But perhaps later we can still like questions around touch, for example. I mean, it's so the tender touches and the importance of touch in your work. We have the amazing opportunity this evening to hear directly from you about the works in the Traumatic Surreal exhibition. So perhaps we could show our audience the works in the Traumatic Surreal exhibition, but also other works. And we could talk through them. And from the mid-1980s, your hard objects are a recurring theme in your oeuvre, and your hard objects are also very important in the Traumatic Surreal show. They offer very powerful critiques of Catholicism and patriarchy, but also explore the marketization of women, so woman as consumable, and the marketization of religion and Austrian folk culture. And I'm thinking about the gingerbread hearts with the kitschy declarations of love and devotion in fairs. You find them a lot, for example, in Austria. So yeah, perhaps we can, yeah.
Regarding the heart, I must mention my trilogy, Amo Ergo Sum. Yes. In 1989, I decided, after working 20 years very intensely, to make a book about it. And Amo Ergo Sum, the title, and the three parts, pornography, irony, and utopia, it just popped up. It was so easy. Yeah. And Amo Ergo Sum I used in it's utopisch, of course. It's a utopia of a whole person where body, mind, and spirit are one and undividable. Yes, it's a very spiritual insight of life. Yes, and and all these three parts were pervading each other, and one can see it when often today when I look for something, I don't know where I shall find look for it in in pornography, in irony, utopia. It's very interesting. Yes. And we see the next. No, again, back, please. Yes. Here is the trilogy with the three parts. In the three colors. They also just popped up, I don't know. And here on the top is eine Schneekugel, a snowball I was creating at this time for each part. Here in the Utopia was a heart with wings. In irony, pacifier, and in pornography a little penis, very abstract. and and it's 2019, I had a wonderful opportunity to show my motto of my life, to sign the pavilion with the motto of my life in form of such a huge sculpture. Yeah.
Amazing.
It was very nice. Okay, the next, yeah. And here are some, only I will show you two examples from the pornography where it's about phallus as a weapon, and the pornography of the war, and the sexuality, what does it mean? Hostility of the church, the sexual hostility of the church. Here it's the left-hand side, the 7 soldiers, it's the right-hand, the 7 cardinals. Look at the next one, please. Yeah, it's also from the pornography part. It's a cartridge bell, and here again preservatives and Bohrmaschine, drilling Bohrmaschine.
The driller, yeah. The
Driller.
drill.
And yes, and it's a left-hand side, a scandalized object of mine, the relic of the Holy Erector. Yes. I was showing it in 1978 in Düsseldorf in the Kunsthalle, and I was collecting as a pregnant bride with a huge Klingelbeutel,
Yeah, it's where you I can't remember the word now, but where you put basically the money in for the church, where you don't need the money to during a church service.
In form of a great of a big condom.
Mhm.
Of course, it was a scandal, and
Went down well, I'm sure.
the whole exhibition was going to van the where Centre Pompidou and van nach Eindhoven,
Mhm.
and but without me. They didn't take anything from me anymore.
Mm. Yeah.
Next one, please. Doesn't matter. Yes, shortly to the irony. The amalgam is pornography, irony, utopia here, irony, and in the irony, it's all about the touching, the skin.
Yeah.
And as you already said, the touching is interesting. It's the skin is experience through the skin. We experience the most extraordinary contradictory feelings,
Mhm.
attraction and compulsion and so on. Yes, and the main part of irony is the so-called washing day with the Streicheleinheiten. This word I can't translate. Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure you can translate it. It's about stroking to get a certain amount of strokes. No, to everybody needs a certain amount of strokes. That means eigentlich Streicheleinheiten. If you don't get enough, then you miss them. So yeah, it's about being touched and being caressed. Eigentlich, I
Yes.
think caressed might be.
Yeah. And my first thesis in Biennale in Guangzhou, my first washing day, it was rather the same size. I had the chance to show in the Frauenmuseum,
Mhm.
Bonn. Yes,
Mhm.
and here, here I allowed at this time that the people could go through the washing day and touch it. And the reactions were very ambivalent. And some were, oh, wonderful. Oh, and some, no, no, it stinks. It was wonderful, really. And the critic of a woman, oh, this stupid woman, they they are talking about washing.
Oh no.
No. So I had my experience. The next one, yeah, and about the heart, of course.
Ex voto is in our exhibition. Very proud
Oh,
of that.
yes.
It's a wonderful piece.
Stress is it's a double meaning, of course. It's the heart, yes, a longing for love and tender relationship with the world, but at the same time, of course, uh, uh, rejection,
Yeah.
a rebellion, uh, uh, defensive. I was never offensive. I never said Phallus Schwanzkadab or so. I never did.
Mhm.
But I will, when I'm getting attacked, I will defend myself.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
here, Ella, it's a big so a heart with wings. The, the Sehnsucht, desire for many,
Longing, yeah.
for the unit of female and male LLIs. Very big one.
Mhm.
And perhaps the next one is in Utopia. That's the main part of the Utopie tile. I
Mhm.
when the theologian finally tell us about tenderness, and uh, here I experienced again and again the sexual hostility of the church.
Mhm.
It was very cheeky and very impossible for them to appreciate that Jesus was a woman. I mean, of course it was, and in a normal Museumsbetrieb, museums business, it was rejected because it was no. So many,
Yeah.
no. And the first time, this is 1979, and I could show it the first time in my Belvedere exhibition 2023.
Yeah.
But I
It
was
was,
very
yeah, it was
glad
beautiful.
I
And
could.
the whole exhibition was so beautiful and so important.
I hope so. Yes, but you say there were 250 pieces, yeah, works.
Yeah.
And one day I met about 80 years, an art historian, and he went around and then he came to me and he said, "You are the artist, are you?" Yes, I said yes. "One can see that you are a brilliant drawer, but follow money." No, what do you say?
Yeah.
And 250 pieces and 20 with phallic motif.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on.
You might be teasing out the unconscious of people, what they see, actually. It says more about the speaker than about.
Was still afraid of his sexuality, obviously, with
Yeah.
with 80. Okay.
Um, yeah, of course, tourism is closely interwoven with all of these, with the hearts and you call it souvenir kitsch in an interview with Gabriele Shaw. And perhaps at this point, perhaps we could look at some of your absolutely brilliant and magnificent snow globes.
Yes, can we see the next photo? Yes. Yes, at the left-hand side, I have already mentioned, these are the trilogy snowball, which I made to the trilogy. And in the middle was Angel. This is a big one, filled with water and snow and paint and little angels swimming in the water, and the glass painted with Wolken, with clouds.
Mhm.
And at the right-hand side there is Spring Awakening, a drawing. Yes, Spring Awakening. It's ironic comment of the awakening of mystics. And
Uh, yeah,
why I loved kitsch, because it's a hierarchical term. Yes, a question of taste, and therefore also a term of exclusion. Yes, and you bring home from Venice a gondola, a Madonna, and you have kitsch, and I have a copy of Mona Lisa on my wall, and of course it's art. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Can we come back to your heart objects? In which context did the idea of the heart object occur to you first? And can you talk more about the intertwining of these different areas of concern, Catholicism, femininity, and their relations to patriarchy?
May I see the, yes, yes.
I love this.
Here can you see the two drawings and one devotional box.
Yeah.
In the church, God is anchored in the heart, of course. Yes, and in this sense, the religious folk art was particularly inspiring for me. I was collecting them, and I was also collecting devotional boxes, different one, and then I built my own. That was
Mhm.
fascinating for me. Yes, and here's the Mother Maria suffering because of her son, Biblia Pauperum, the Biblia for the poor, and the devotionals. And the devotions were in a sense very touching for me because they were all made by nuns for worship, and with great accuracy, and very often some very precious materials like gold, draht, perlen, all sorts of wonderful stuff, and with very much, they were very gifted, and they composed also very nice, and they had a big collection. But I sold them, sorry. Yeah. And perhaps the heart, concerning the heart, the next year, here's a redemption of my sisters, referring to the Golgotha motif. Yes.
And the wings, are they swan wings?
They are swan wings, yes. They're real swan wings, stuffed swan wings, yes.
And where did you get them from?
From einen, wie sagt man da, einen
Taxi
Tierberater.
Yeah, taxidermist.
Oh,
Oh, how interesting.
yeah, yeah.
So perhaps we can move to a very special art for us, which is Fur Heart with Knife from 1987. This piece is also in the Traumatic Surreal exhibition. And if you look directly at the fur heart, so that occupied me throughout the exhibition, if you look directly at the fur heart, it's very difficult to spot the knife. There is a very sharp object, a very sharp knife in the middle of all this fur. So the viewer has to go to the side of the object to see the knife's sharp edge. And this suggests to me that looking awry, having to change position to discover a different perspective, is an important aspect of your work, this kind of changing perspective.
I can summarize. I mean, I always set traps. I love traps, yes. The fur head, for instance, this object, the fur heart is very erotic.
Yeah.
Dangerous and irritating. When you come nearer, you see a very sharp knife, yes. And this occurs very, very often in my work. And I remember my best test person was my mother.
Yeah.
She was by herself a wonderful artist, but because of the war and all sorts of things, she couldn't. She had no scholarship. She couldn't end her studies. I mean, and but when she came into my studio, she saw from a distance, oh, what have you done? It looks nice. Then she comes closer and closer and said in despair, no, not something trouble. Terrible again.
Yeah.
You will never be able to exhibit and sell it. How right she was. Still is. No, sometimes I think. But
Yeah. Yeah.
in the left-hand side, you see my rose, the light. Sorry, I'm Legasthenic. I always mix up left and right. Okay, at the left-hand side, you see the knife roses from Venice Biennale. And this was also a wonderful trap. When you came nearer from a distance, there was a door which you could see something red, very glowing, and you come nearer and nearer. Oh, roses! Roses! Oh, and then you are just in front of it. Oh, no! So many knives! I was very lucky one day. I experienced a woman. She was so shocked and she was crying. She was so crying and bitterly crying when she saw it. I don't know what happened in her heart.
Yeah. Very interesting.
But this I realized again. Okay, yes, yes. I did a good job.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it was such a wonderful installation as well.
And the name, of course, is Cordo ergo sum, as I'm against, I'm rebel, I disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in front, amo ergo sum.
So I think what is really interesting as well, and of course that's why For a Heart with Knife, for example, is in the exhibition. That For a Heart with Knife is an extraordinary surrealist object for me. So and that surrealism threads through from the juxtapositions of the softness of the fur with the sharpness of the knife, its status as a kind of dream object, its discourse on eros and thanatos, the use of fur, of course, to its resonances with works by Meret Oppenheim. Can you talk more about surrealism in your work? When did you first come across surrealism? How was surrealism perceived in Austria at the time?
When I was studying at the Academy of Fine Art, the fantastic realists
Yeah.
were in the height of their fame, yes. They were, of course, influenced by surrealism, but for me, not so irrational. Um, uh, they didn't inspire me at all, but perhaps also because three of them were professors on the academy.
Yeah.
They're behaving like machos, I mean, terrible. Yeah?
Yeah.
But they didn't inspire me anyway, how they about their topics and their way. The way they were painting was interesting. They use this, that was also touched my interest for different to experimenting in medium. They were using the Gothic layer, the layer casein tempera oil,
Mhm.
tempera oil, and that makes a very, very fascinating depth. Yes,
Mhm.
nothing
Mhm.
compared with oil, and
Mhm.
this I use very, very often in my work, but not their content, only only
Yeah.
the medium.
Mhm.
But the the um, my favorite was René Magritte. Yes, he combined for me so much. He was a magician. Can you say magician? Is it right?
Yeah, he was a magician, absolutely.
And he was intellectual. He was very clever, intellectual, and he was spiritual, all at the same time for me. I mean, you're an expert. I mean, I hope you. I don't say rubbish, yes, but
No, no, and I think Magritte is extremely interesting as an artist. I wrote 3 books on Magritte, and
uh,
I never tire of looking at his work.
one never can. No, no. And
No.
that's why even and one day, and he had. I think I hope I quote rightly, but um, somebody said, "Oh, your work is so mysterious," and he answered a very spiritual way. Your work, my work, is not mysterious. Not it's not mysterious. It is nothing, nothing, because the mysterious is a nothingness. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's,
really totally spiritual. I mean, it's out of a, I don't know, of a Ashtavakra Gita or something. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Perhaps we can
and
move to your,
haven't seen the pictures, the next pictures, please.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he inspired me. His work, Les Amants, uh, inspired me to self-timer uh, sequences. That's all me, and I made it in the dark room for double exposure. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's a whole sequence, and I loved it.
Um, yeah, it's really interesting. The Magritte picture was based on a film from the early, I think 1910s, 1919, and it was a lost film. And I found it a couple of years ago, the film. So it was people found the film, and I finally could access it and see that actually this is what Magritte's Les Amants was based on. So in terms of, for me, Ex Voto and then also Fur Heart, so the two heart pieces, are for me personally sister pieces, which take apart Magritte's 1934 painting The Rape, where he condenses a woman's breasts and pubic area into a woman's face. And your works take this quite horrible and disempowering representation apart, weaponizing the female body parts with scalpels. So for me, in Ex Voto, the breasts are very much the Magrittean breasts, and it really is the two pieces seem to be taking that kind of condensation, what Magritte did in that painting, apart, and as I said, weaponizing the female body with scalpels. It's an interesting symbolic and artistic operation, and on this cue, the medical sphere is also an important focus of your work. And perhaps we can move to the next images to discuss the medical sphere in your work.
Next image, please. Yeah. The fact is that I wanted to study medicine. I wanted to be a doctor, to heal the world. And I was studying on the academy, and I still was going into hospitals to serve as a Hilfsschwester, helping sister, and so on. And I attended dissection courses, and
Yeah.
here I discovered the scalpel. And since 50 years, I'm using it. I mean, that's my instrument.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And here you see in the middle, it's such a instrument for me that in the middle I made mammography, and suddenly on the screen there was appearing a knife. I hope you believe me. And uh, of course, I am really still I'm bandaging a lot because I love it. Here in the left hand side, you see bandaged injured body parts,
Mhm.
and at the right hand side, you see X-ray. Yes, with kidneys, painted kidneys,
Mhm.
and it's called kidney cancer X-ray.
Mhm.
I'm very, how do you say, when you think that you are,
Hypochondriac.
I am a hypochondriac, very great, and I have let X-ray my body from the toes to the head all the time, but I must admit, I made it because I used the X-ray builder pictures
Very interesting. Mhm.
of my art. I used it very often. I made a whole series of X-ray pictures.
Mhm.
The next one, also medical and here intensive care unit, a drawing,
Mhm.
and here again a wheelchair with infusion bottles, and a drawing emergency box with needles, with hypodermic needles. So
Mhm.
all this medical stuff was and is always very fascinating. Yes.
Yeah. Perhaps we could also speak about Blinder Engel, Blind Angel. So this is this piece, and it's also behind me.
Blind Angel is yeah. I lived 1985. I lived in the Provence, and I discovered a very old French cemetery with their old graveyards and grave decorations. Yes, and I found a totally rotten and neglected grave
Mhm.
with a blind glass. And behind that glass, I could see a photo of a person, like a shadow. Yes.
Mhm.
And there was written on the stone that it was a young girl buried here with the age of 9.
Mhm.
this touched me very much because she was not only dying very young, but also totally forgotten, obviously.
Yeah.
So I dedicated her. It's a dedication to her.
Mhm. And it's also in our exhibition. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, exhibition, yes, yes. I'm very happy that you have chosen it.
It's very fragile, isn't it? It was, I remember when we unpacked it, we were trying to be so careful with the piece and the feathers and
Yeah. Well, when the feathers fly around a bit, it doesn't matter. it it starts to live again.
yeah, interesting.
Mm.
Um, can I ask you, how do you find your titles?
They just pop up. I mean,
Yeah.
and what I do and I love is to hide behind foreign languages. It's a more or less a protective layer. Yes.
So we have some examples here, actually.
This, yeah, Juvencus cubitus, a cheeky boy, and
Yeah,
politicum artitomidum, and cheeky body tamed by art. Oh, I love that. I mean,
yeah, it's one.
nobody, at first that nobody knows, nobody can understand. And what I did, the slingshot action I mentioned in connection with Franklin Furnace, the out of the office, out of the off came an English text, uh, took it out of the sex shop of the sectionals. Yes,
Mhm.
and I was enjoying it so much. But of course, the people in Franklin Furnace were very shocked because the language was so vulgar, so hard, so dirty. Yes, and for me it was fun. Yes, and I was trying to be throw this dirty language away. Everybody was shocked. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, so perhaps I think we are already in terms of our discussion, as you mentioned, the sex shop, with your series Carmen, with your Carmen series. So perhaps we can show some of those artworks.
The next one.
Um,
Yes, as a Carmen, we will see in the next video.
yeah, the,
Carmen has all these enfants terribles,
yeah,
strange again. Yes, have a story. Yes, I started with Mom's Favorite in 1989, and this the head of it was a self molded, self-formed clans. Yes, but in the next here, Innocence or Drag. Can I have the next one?
there's Carmen, yeah.
Amen here and here Bride, they are all godemiches bought in sex shops. Yes.
And Carmen is, of course, in the exhibition. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Can you talk more about your exploration of sex toys and shops and, of course, pornography in your work? The sex shop is also a kind of surrealist treasure trove, very importantly, a place where indeed different body parts are suddenly juxtaposed with each other, creating surrealist chance encounters, such as the one hailed by the surrealists in the formulation of Lautréamont, describing the chance encounter between, that's the famous formulation, a sewing machine and an umbrella on an operating table.
The next, yeah. I mean, you can see here, the products are really, I mean, very surreal, yeah. Concerning the colors, the function, and here, here you have a breast. At the left-hand side, you have a breast. Uh, I don't know the word with Zwicker, nipple Zwicker. Can you?
Yeah, I don't know it either, to be absolutely honest. A nipple tweaker, perhaps.
Yes,
It's not bad.
and handcuffs, left and
Yeah.
right handcuffs. And in the middle, shoes where it's written on a fuck. Fuck. And it's a Reinhardt X, a very interesting instrument where you can beat yourself, and it makes a clutcher. Makes a chuck, 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 a certain sound. Huh? It is good, isn't it? And then
Yeah.
the next one, the next photo.
Yeah.
At the right, at the left, we see the fleur de mal. They are decorated condoms. In German, is it mehrfach preservative? It means they're stronger and thicker, and they are decorated, yes, with all sorts of masks of elephant head and of a mouse, and I made a Blumenstrauß, a flower bunch out. And in the middle here, my favorite, Adam and Eve, with those two lovely sex dolls I made my first in New York.
Mhm.
And at the right-hand side, so very ugly. The new sex dolls are very ugly. And so I decorated with here with a mask and
Can you also, what is interesting here, can you talk a little bit more about how you source the materials for your objects? How do you, do you collect them?
yeah, I'm constantly buying something. I, when I see something what I can integrate in my work, I buy it. I mean, I have boxes, thousands of boxes, all full of stuff. And when time is ripe, I know this box I have to open, and everything comes out what I need.
Oh, very interesting. Perhaps we can also show an image of your studio.
Yeah, yes, that is in my very long ago. I was excessively collecting religious kitsch
Mhm.
from all over where I was traveling. And here was a corner, and it was very inspiring. And perhaps because it was holy works, and it, of course, you couldn't dust it. Yeah, abstauben. How do you say abstauben?
Yeah, you couldn't dust it, yeah.
Never had a dust on it. It was a holy corner. Yes,
Yeah, it's fantastic.
for years and years it was. And then I suddenly put it in a box. Yes. And away.
So unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our in conversation. But one last question I want to really ask, and that is there any shift in thematic emphasis in contrast to your earlier work or in your current work? Have your political concerns changed or shifted, or is there still a necessity to focus on themes and questions explored in your earlier work?
Yeah, I think
I want
everything.
to move to the
Yes, this one.
yeah.
Every topic develops out of the next one and the next one and next one. And all the roots are, of course, they are all colored from all works what I did in before. I mean, it's a whole. It's a whole.
Yeah.
Yes, it just, and when I see something or hear something outside which touches me, automatically the pictures pop up, and I have to wait until it forms a whole. And I'm not. There are different ways of working, and many are. I have a white canvas, standing in front of the canvas and says, okay, I don't know what, but I would like to fill this canvas, yes? And
Yeah.
start and again and back and forward and so on. I don't do that. I never start before I don't have a total clear picture in me.
Mhm.
Then I have a very short satisfaction, very short, when the product, which perhaps could have cost 1 year hard work, is standing for me and exactly looks like the original picture in me. Then I say, okay, yes, it's finished. But only 1 second. And then oh my gosh. And this one is what we see is I don't talk about, I can't talk because I have the exhibition in May in Vienna in Galerie Steineck, and I will show here new works. The topic will be insight.
Mhm.
Perhaps the title is already suggesting or pointing to something which could
Yeah.
be familiar to my earlier work.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Renate. Thank you so much for all your time and for answering all my questions. It was absolutely fascinating and so important as well to, as we were talking about, you know, the oral history of your work, of it was really important for me to hear your responses and how work developed and the context of it. So we have got 5 minutes for questions. I'm not going to stop sharing this because perhaps there are questions around the artworks as well. So perhaps the first question comes from Claire McDermott, and the question is, can you tell us why you use a knife in your artwork? In the sculpture titled Juvencus Cupidus, Torero, 1985, can you tell us the relationship of the roses to the other objects, please?
Mm. I I don't really understand the question. What has Juvencus Cupitus to do with the roses? So there are two
I
different.
think it's more about the knives in your work. So perhaps I think the question was more about the knives and why you are using knives in your work.
As I was as I said already, the knife is for me a picture of protest. Yes,
Mhm.
I use it to defend myself. It's
Mhm.
a dangerous instrument, of course.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful, but it is needed because we can be in dangerous situations, and then we have a weapon to save our life.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And then there is another question, and that's from Valentin Diakonov. And Valentin says, thank you, wonderful work, very funny, irreverent, and bold. Can you formulate the relationship between organized religion and sexuality? How you see it in life and your art?
Organized sexuality.
Organized religion and sexuality. So
What
the
do you
church,
understand under organized religion?
the church. So the church as an organization, as a
I mean, I mentioned the hostility of the church, of course. I mean, they are terribly afraid of sexuality. And at the same time, they need it, of course. They are only human, and they're longing for it. Yes, I was once working in a monastery, restoring some pictures, and the young monk was very nice, and we got into very intimate conversation, and he admitted, he said, if you don't know how I'm dreaming from a child, from a family, and it never will be true. So it's, yeah, they are more or less, most of them are in prison, but others are on the right place. I mean, yeah.
Mhm. And there's another question from Claire McDermott, and the question is, can you say why you use roses in your work, please?
I mean, rose is of course very. It also goes in the direction of kitsch. Yes,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
kitsch
yeah,
element. And rose, the woman is a rose.
yeah.
In this sense, of course, it's I I use I use the irony to have a distance to all these delicate and intimate topics. Yes, that's an instrument, a very protecting and good instrument for me, the irony. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. And that's again the surrealist element, the juxtaposition of the knife with the beautiful rose, and indeed there is this kitsch element, as you say, and the souvenir element is in there again. I'm thinking about fairgrounds. So you buy a woman a rose and it's so cheap, but yet it is
Yes,
meant to represent this never-ending love. So it's kind of yeah, very strange. And Valentine's Day is coming up, isn't it? So it's high time for kitsch.
yeah, 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 I love it.
There, there is a last question, and then unfortunately we have to finish. It's by Julia Harauer, and the question is: Thank you for the interesting talk. A question from me: How has it changed for you to work with Christian symbols, and will this continue to integrate it? Discussed in your work. So will the Christian symbolism, will that continue to play part in your work? Will you continue to work with Christianity, with religion, with
I mean,
Catholic?
yes, it will always be, it will always stay as a topic, but I never know when, because I can get an inspiration through an object I get somewhere, and then I suddenly, oh yes, of course I will continue. And then can be years that I don't have such a inspiration, and then suddenly it pops up. Yes, but I'm open to all these subjects all the time.
Well, thank you so much, Renate. I cannot thank you enough. It was so interesting to hear about your work, to hear about also your life and how the two also intersect with each other. Thank you very much for, as I said, making your work available for our exhibition. I would also like to thank for the questions, for the very interesting questions. And once more, thank you very much. And I'm very much looking forward to your future work and also at the Galerie Steineck, the exhibition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and for interesting questions.
Thank you. And I wish everybody a really beautiful evening.
I wish to. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.